Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. This week, I wanted to bring on a old school friend, who is there's an interesting background to me and him, but I won't get into it right now. But basically, long story short, we knew of each other in school. We then grew apart, as everyone does, and then when he and I both got back into filmmaking, more specifically, or as more of a main focus when we went away from gaming at the time. Then so then we kind of reconnected and then became friends again and that kind of thing and had a conversation. So then I thought it'd be good to have a conversation on the podcast about where he is and the kind of short-term narrative stuff that he's looking to do as well. So thank you so much for coming back and enjoying and consuming this podcast. I really appreciate it, and I will see you very, very soon. But I'll let Nathan explain a little bit now of who he is, what he does, and where he's looking to go.
I'm Nathan Mountain. I'm 23. I bounce between Hampshire and Wiltshire quite often, not really in one place all the time. And currently, I am employed at the time of recording this for Face TV, and I also have a freelancing gig on the side.
Mm-hmm. So how do you so what is Face? Because those who won't or may not know, what is Face TV in a kind of concise box?
Sure.
If you had to put it into a concise box.
Face TV is essentially a video agency where we make professional corporate videos and TV commercials for any client that wants it. And currently, we've got a really good partnership going with Sky AdSmart as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And from my understanding anyway, you've been with them, I want to say a year-ish.
Yeah, it's been just
there
over
or
a
there,
year.
there or thereabouts. So how was that kind of transition? I don't know how much you want to get into kind of your past experiences and your past work, but how was that transition from, I'm going to call a normal job, or a closer to 9 to 5 job, that then going into a kind of more production house, kind of video production line, kind of really heavily into the industry transition?
Yeah, of course. The transition isn't actually as big as of a transition as you think it would be, because the video agency job is still a 9 to 5, and before that I was only doing part-time on my other job. So to give context, before I worked at Face TV, I was working at Vodafone in Salisbury, and I only worked there part-time so that I could do another company on the side. So before I worked with Face, and sort of during that period a little bit, I ran another partnership company with my girlfriend Megan called MTM Media, which is essentially the same as what I do for freelance, except we just do it together. So doing lots of weddings, corporate gigs, videos, social media videos, anything that people pay us and hire us for, really. So transitioning from one to the other didn't really make too much of a difference, except for the fact it wasn't as no offense to anyone that still works there, wasn't as miserable. I just don't like working in retail. And to be fair, working in retail gave me sort of the confidence and the attitude to want to be like, okay, I definitely don't want to do this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of here and do what I want to do as soon as possible.
No, definitely. I think that a lot of people who are in the same boat, and I'm sure we'll come on to lockdown and COVID a little bit more later, but I think that a lot of people are definitely in the same boat, or definitely thinking about, what do I actually want to do? How do I actually want to do it? In that respect, I personally, I think, know the answer to this, but just for the
record,
people listening and for the record, was there like a kind of pivotable moment where you were like, right, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do it, and that I'm going to go and work in retail because I need to get to X amount of money, so then I can go and do this, or then I need to build this, or etc. In that respect, was there a specific point or specific day or week or month or year or whatever?
I guess you could technically boil it down to a few specific points. So I've always been interested in video creation of any kind and creating entertainment since I was probably about 13, I guess. It would have been, it's around 2011, because that's when I first discovered things like YouTube and started watching entertainment on the internet, and that's when it all started really becoming a big thing as well, and that most people started transitioning to YouTube, Netflix, and all the like of that. So I guess that was one starting point. But I guess when I got to college, so to give a bit of background context, I actually went to college twice. So I went to a place called QMC in Basingstoke first, where I studied computing, maths, photography, and media. And it was in doing media at QMC that I realized, well, this is the only thing I'm enjoying out of all my subjects, except photography was okay. It was a bit too, the subject at college was a bit too artsy for me. I prefer the more digital travel, so you call it quote unquote indie style photography. Um, but yeah, media was the only subject I actually enjoyed at QMC. So I was like, okay, I've got this qualification now at an A level in media. What I'm going to do now is go to college again, where I focus solely on doing that so I can get an even better qualification and find a way into the industry, which is what I did. So I went to Andover College after that. I did a level 3 creative media BTech, which is equivalent to 3 A levels. Worked as hard as I possibly could and ended up coming up with the top grade you possibly can get, which I believe is like 3 distinction stars. Yeah, and so I knew then that this is definitely what I want to be doing, because I hadn't enjoyed learning anything as much as I enjoyed learning everything in those media subjects.
Mm-hmm. And then how did you do it kind of, because for me, like, it's interesting to hear that firstly, but secondly, I think there's a kind of I guess there's a gap in between you leaving college the second time and then going to Fat Face TV or Face TV, sorry. um you know, what was that like? Firstly, how long was that transition, if there was one? And like, I'm just trying to give like I think that's an interesting background to sort of know how long that transition was and how that transition was, and then also sort of what those little milestones or little things that you were trying to strive for were during that time.
Yeah. So just connect the dots between from college to the Face TV job. Yeah. I believe. I guess if I started in Face TV in 2019, that must mean I finished college in 2017. So Andover College, my second college, finished that qualification in 2017. So I guess it was a 2-year period where before I actually managed to get a job in the industry, and that's when I was doing the MTM Media Company with Megan, excuse me. And we were basically just using that time and opportunity to make some money, build our equipment list, get all the gear that we wanted, which we did. We got a lot on finance, which to be honest, I wouldn't recommend doing unless you have a lot of money, because it was this past 3-4 years, it's all just coming to an end now, the financial monthly payments, and it has been a bit of a struggle trying to keep up with everything. But now we have the equipment that we want, and now we are we built our portfolio off of that as well. So it was a great exercise to be able to actually get out there, do things, talk to clients, make new connections, and really learn a lot about what it takes to work in the industry without much help as well, which I think it's sort of a good and a bad thing. You kind of do need someone there to direct you in the right way, so you don't get completely off track. And we did have a bit of help from our old college teacher from Andover College, so which is actually where me and Megan met. But that's actually, funny enough, how I got the job at Face TV. So I wasn't actually looking for a job still at that point. I was still carrying on with this partnership with Megan. But then out of nowhere, my old college teacher messages me on Facebook, saying that, hey, there's this job going on with a few friends I have from Basingstoke. I think you'd be a perfect fit for it. Take a look and see if you want to apply. So I had a look of it, and I saw obviously Face TV. They've done some pretty cool things, and I definitely really wanted to have a job in the industry, and so I just went for it. And because he recommended me, that according to them, after I talked to them about it later, sort of helped me rise above other applications, because along with the fact that I have experience myself. So that's how I ended up getting the job.
Okay, no, that's interesting to hear because I've heard a lot of, through a lot of what I do, I talk to a lot of industry people, or I talk to a lot of people who are on YouTube are doing their own thing, or that kind of balancing out between, do I want to start my own production company or do I want to join another to then specifically either be with them for a period of time and then learn as much as I can from them and then go out on my own, or vice versa. Have you looking forward for you? Do you think that you'll, because you know it's kind of, I think right now anyway, with the climate and the way it is, and we can wind the climb back to lockdown a bit as well, or deeper into lockdown if you want as well. But do you think that what is your kind of future want or future ambitions, should I say, in the respect of where's your next steps going to be moving forward?
As in just career wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, there is like a soft plan laid out for the future on what some things we know we want to do, and things that we may do, may not do, depends on obviously the situation of what everything going on. Um, but I think, to be honest, main plan at the moment for immediately is where we are looking at moving from where we're from, and we're looking at getting another job in the industry. Maybe it depends. Um, obviously, just for the record, at the moment, because of COVID-19, Face actually had to. They thought they had to let a couple of us go, so they did that about a month before lockdown was into place, and before anything like any talk of furlough or any other businesses were being affected. So I was trying to build a freelance portfolio really quickly, just to be able to support myself and still be able to get clients. But obviously, when the whole lockdown thing happened, we I didn't have to worry about the money as much, because Face was able to put me back on the furlough scheme when that came into place. So luckily, I am still able to make some sort of wage and be able to pay my bills while not being in work. But then that whole thing got me thinking, because they had a very honest conversation with us, which was very kind of them, basically just to say that they will do what they can, but they don't know if they'll be able to afford to take us back when the whole thing blows over, because obviously they don't know how much work they're going to be able to get and how many people can afford to give them work, or at least work that's worth doing, so that they can pay all their employees. So they said, um, we'll do what we can, but I suggest, put your CV out there, see what other things are available just in case. So that's what we have been doing. And we've got a couple of job interviews at the time of recording this as well. So that is looking more positive. But apparently, also at the time, so we are, or on the 19th of June today. Um, Face has been getting a lot of requests, and from people wanting TV commercials and people wanting to get back into business. So it's actually looking more positive either way I look at it. So there's a lot of options. I don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but the plan mainly for uh, me is to use this to uh, build up a bit more money, pay all the bills obviously and everything like that, and just I'm going to start focusing more on the film aspect of everything I want to achieve, because I've realized in the last couple of years or so, it's the actual, I say traditional, it could go to a non-traditional side of it, but filmmaking is really what I want to be doing in the future. So I have so many film ideas, like probably like 5 years worth of notes on my phone from of films that I want to make. And I released my debut short film actually. It's actually last year now, so it was at the end of last year. um, and I've just pitched for another short film as well. Hopefully that something can come out of that, and then I've got another short film on top of that, and then I'm going to be moving into bigger things afterwards. So it's looking to be an exciting future. But yeah, to be honest, the end goal is just making as many of these films and TV shows that I possibly can.
Yeah, and just to give some brief context on what Nathan means when he says like film, because this term is kind of thrown around quite a lot from the people I speak to. I'm not sure from your side as well, but from my understanding anyway, it's more narrative pieces. It's things closer to what you would see on Netflix and another form of TV. Kind of the concept of like traditional Hollywood film.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
In that respect. I just think there's because some people use the term, and I have personally as well, use the term of like, oh, we're going to make a business promotional video that's actually a film,
Yeah,
right? As well, because there's some storytelling elements involved, and that's why I think the term film is thrown around. But I think they're very different.
Oh yeah,
skill
100%.
sets
Yeah,
in the respect to
there's a huge difference between a cinematic video and an actual film or movie in those respects. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think that there's a lot of crossover as well, of course,
Yeah.
like just technical understanding, and also directing, and some bits that you would do during a more commercial setting, shall I say. Do you think there's any skills that you may have picked up from your previous work, whether that's freelance wise or when you're at your production house or company, that you are are really, really key in what you are looking to do moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of different skills. So I guess you would say my primary specialist skill is a video editor, because that's what I've done for most of my life. So when I was obviously making little um YouTube videos when I was 13, 14 or whatever, I wasn't really focused too much on like the camera side and that ability. I was more invested in the editing, and I still am to this day. um so yeah, editing is something I will always be carrying over. But what I've learned from uh being at Face and doing obviously these freelance bits of work, and the partnership, is things like being the director of photography or the cinematographer, which is essentially where you are in charge of how everything looks according to the director's vision. So um, the the first thing we were ever hired to do in terms of being a director of photography, both me and Megan were co-directors of photography, was for a short film we shot in Basingstoke called Uninspired Moments. We shot it for a good friend of ours, who was recommended from my work colleague, and that, yeah, it was a first taste of being like in an important role, I guess, for film production. Although before that, we did get some directing experience as well. Our director's debut was for a behind the scenes film, I guess you would call this, I get, but probably more accurately a documentary, um, of a short horror film called Dead Air, which was actually written by my old college teacher. So there's the connection again. And because he obviously knows that we're looking to get as much set experience as possible and he wants to help us out, he advised to come and do that for them. And they were really happy with the ending for that. So that came out well. But yeah, and transferring those skills are definitely going to help in the future, because I know we both want to direct, but I know Megan really loves her being director of photography, and I do love both. But I do want to mainly write and direct in the future, just because of all the ideas that I have in my head. Just want to a chance to make them to make them real.
Yeah, to make them a
Yeah.
reality. Yeah, exactly. I think that sounds like a really positive partnership in the respect to, for obvious reasons, there will be that kind of symbiotic relationship between the story and the look,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's gonna kind of allow you to, in an industry which is can be very closed. I think it can be a way that you will, hopefully anyway, not necessarily now, but in the future at least, push to the point where you will be able to really, make some waves happen because of that symbiotic relationship with what you're doing as
Yeah, of
well.
course. And obviously, there's a lot of uh, different avenues and different skills and different job responsibilities that are out there for everyone. So there's obviously not one path to get into that industry. And there's a lot of different skills that I have actually picked up from just Face alone, just because they have a lot of training opportunities and different things you can do. Like I was learning audio techniques, so audio engineering, how to edit, how's best to record it. Did a bit of drone training as well. So there's a lot of skills that we can transfer, and even if you don't use them in the future, especially if you're going into a position of directing like I want to be in, it's always good to have the knowledge of of all these little jobs so that you can understand them as best as possible, so that you're not one of those directors who knows nothing and yells at people when they can't get it done. You actually understand what they have to go through and all the work that they have to put in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's always good from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that moving forward with your short film work and etc., that you will specifically, I know you said you were kind of into video editing and you are quote unquote a video editor. Do you think that you will work with an editor when it comes to editing your own shorts, or do you think that you will take that on yourself as a thing to do?
The shorts 100%. I will be editing them myself, just because I believe in myself that I can do it to a good standard, and it's what I've been doing my whole life. And it's not like it's an enormous project to take on. I've edited a couple of shorts already, so I know what it entails. And when you're putting together these little edits, you're not really doing it yourself anyway, because you're gonna more than likely have the audio edited by someone else and then passed back to you. And if the director wants a colorist, you send over the footage to them, they do the color grade for you and then send it back. So you're not really doing everything yourself as the editor anyway. But when it comes to the time of, so the short films I'm doing now are only really to put a stamp on these things and make a name for myself in the industry, I guess more locally than anything, but just so people are aware of what we do and what kind of thing we can make. And then once we do those, once we push on to bigger things like writing for, like, say, an episodic type of show or a feature film, that's where we'll start looking at building an actual crew with people who have the specialized skills to actually do all these little parts that we don't need to do ourselves.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. That was going to be my next question, because I think that the natural progression from I want to make cool films to I want to make narratives then makes me just think to, then shouldn't you want to go on to features, or shouldn't you then want to go on to more, episode-driven
Yeah,
stories?
I think it depends on,
in that
yeah, I think
respect.
it depends on what kind of what you're into, really, or what kind of person you are. Because I know some people in the industry who I've met from short film festivals and stuff like that, who are just happy making short films. That's all they want to do, really, and they don't really want to progress on any more than that. Some people make a living off of just doing their specialized skill for short films, like a DP who always gets hired to work the camera because of their specific setup, or a writer who's just really talented, that they're just happy doing short films all the time. But yeah, if you want to move on to um, features, and well, if you want to move on to bigger and better things, you don't keep doing shorts for the rest of your life. You do some shorts to really lay the foundation, and then you really push yourself.
No, definitely. I think that's really important. I think that a lot of people, especially nowadays, should be looking to push themselves like just in respect to what they're capable of doing. I think that's really important, because I think that would allow them to, in some ways, actually be surprised with what they can achieve as well. In the respect to, like, I was here, but I pushed myself and I actually got further than I expected to. Did you so moving winding the clock back a little bit? So during lockdown specifically, was there, like, what was that? How was that for you in the respect to, like, did it hit you hard? Was it something that was difficult for you, or did you kind of just sort of naturally change into, like, this is my new day to day? You briefly talked about the finance end, but I think interesting for me, because a lot of people have asked me, how have you used your time, right? So I guess in a simple answer, how have you used your time?
Well, obviously, like I said before, at the start of the lockdown, financially, obviously, it was quite difficult because we didn't know that everyone was going to go into lockdown. We didn't know that we were going to get this furlough scheme where we were still going to get paid, luckily. So once that came, before that, I was working really hard on building just a freelance portfolio for myself, because something I should have done a long time ago, I just never got around to doing, is building, because obviously we had the partnership, we had MTM, we have a portfolio website in that respect. But I never had an individual portfolio myself. So I just worked on the week's notice at work that I was given. I worked incredibly hard just to build that and make it look as good as possible, which I ended up doing. But obviously it wasn't necessary in the end because no one was hiring, and then we all went into lockdown and it was basically redundant. So after that, yeah, for a while, it was just a lot of just getting to grips with what had happened. So not really doing much, catching up on a lot of TV and film on Netflix and all the like, just because we could and we had the time for once, and we didn't know how long this was going to last. But then when we realized it was going to be a bit longer, I definitely wanted to get back into a more productive mindset. And that's when I started writing all these scripts I've been coming up with again. So I started writing my next short film, which is the one I ended up pitching. And then I wrote another one straight after that because I had 2 film ideas that I wanted to get down as soon as possible. And then I also started realizing how much there is I want to do that I just don't ever get the time to do because of your usual 9 to 5 job. So I still wanted to be involved heavily in things like music. So I mean, this information will already be out there by the time this podcast goes out. But I've started already making my own music for the first time that I've won since I think I wanted to do it since I was like 13. And I've only just started really getting around to doing it now properly. Just at the time of recording this, just finished writing my first ever song as well, from a riff that I've had since I was 16, which isn't the best song in the world, but I've done it, and that's the main thing. I just wanted to push forward from that. So yeah, so that was a I guess that was sort of how I used the other half of the time that I wasn't doing the filmmaking stuff in terms of being productive. I still gave myself time to relax every now and then and not just be constantly working. But yeah, I even things like having a YouTube channel, I stopped that while I was at Face because I just didn't have the time to do it. And now I'm having the time to do it, and I'm going to start creating stuff again just to have that creative outlet of doing things for myself while I can, and keeping the good habits up of how to edit everything properly and how to shoot properly. Because if you have huge periods of not doing any of that, then you're more than likely going to forget these little bits here and there, and it's not good for keeping up the consistency of your quality of work.
No, definitely. I think that it's been, for me anyway, it's been very important for me to continue to be cutting things together and putting edits together and putting things together and trying to shoot where I can, because it keeps you sharp, right? So when it comes to a client needs X, a client needs Y, oh, I'm going to be going on to a short film production or whatever it may be, you're then a lot more prepared and you're a lot then ready, and you don't feel as if you've had this like weird lag because you haven't been doing it for a month or two, in that respect. I think it's really interesting to kind of hear that you're starting with music, and that was kind of going to lead me on to my next question, which was what kind of, you can talk from the music industry or the film industry or both, but how important do you feel that film or video is going to be moving out of the lockdown period, and kind of, for maybe businesses or bands or any kind of creative person or business person or someone who is really, really looking to up what they're doing in the respect of whether it's marketing or whether it's just their presence overall and how they do their messaging. What would you kind of suggest, and also what are you personally thinking of doing, if you have thought about it, from either a music production or maybe even a kind of behind the scenes and helping that documentary style process of how you actually make a short film, for example?
Yeah, of course. Just touching on the music thing again quickly before I answer that, is that even though it is something I really want to do, it's like one of those it's one of those fields where I really love it. I would love to do that sort of thing as a career, but I wouldn't necessarily be unhappy with any of the other. So like I have like 4 or 5 like huge passions of in the digital creative field that I would love to do as a career. So any one of those that I go down, I wouldn't necessarily be unhappy with. So in terms of music, at the moment, it's basically just a massive hobby, I guess is the best way to frame it. So even though I'm just starting to make my own music, and I would love to if it would turn into something, I'm not necessarily going for that as my goal. But in terms of how important anything creative is going to be in the future, well, especially with video, media, photography, anything visual, I think that is going to be to be honest, probably one of the most important parts to any business that's coming back from lockdown, because it's all well and good to post something on social media saying, oh, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and we can reassure you that you're going to be really safe, don't worry. It's all well and good having that in a couple of posts here and there, but it a picture speaks 1,000 words. People are more than likely going to be reassured when they see what you can do rather than just reading about what you can do. So you could just have a 2-minute little social media clip of showing the precautions you're taking. So like, for example, Face TV are actually the boss who's not furloughed has been making this video for our clients, just to say, hey, look, we're coming back out of lockdown and we're ready to do it, do any work you want, but in a safe social distancing manner. So we've got there's little videos of the tape on the floor, tape on the floor that shows 2 meters apart. There's hand sanitizer been drilled to the walls now, and it's just little things like that to say, in a more cheerful manner, you can also get your emotion across a lot better through video and audio rather than just through text, where anyone can interpret it in any way that they think it should be said. It's just a better way of saying to anyone you want to, hey, we're still here and we're going to be doing whatever we can to have a partnership here, have some business, and do it on your terms, and making sure everyone's safe, happy, and healthy.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I think that for me, I think it was like personally and also client wise, it was definitely something that I sort of said to my clients and have said to myself, you should be looking to see how you can develop your business, from whether that's if you rely on footfall right now. So for example, you're a shop and you really rely on footfall, this should be something that you should use this time to say, okay, well, I'm very reliant on footfall right now. How can I not be so reliant on footfall in the future? I would say video is one of those ways, but that's more amplifying what you're trying to say more than necessarily giving you another revenue stream. Of course, there is ways to turn video into new revenue streams, but that's a topic all in itself. but I would say, people who, for example, retailers who are looking to, develop an online store, and that's kind of important. It all, I think, comes back eventually to what is the content you're going to do to help promote that thing, whatever that thing may be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think even just a little, just going around, even if you don't have the money to hire someone, video related, even if you just go and shoot
Mm-hmm.
something on your phone of like a staff member, or just to show the day to day how it's running, and just make people realize that they're going to be well looked after if they choose to come and still shop at whatever store that they're running.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And also giving people who may be scared, worried, etc., also giving them options to say, well, if you don't want to come to store, I know, for example, a client of mine is sort of done kind of virtual tours in the respect she'll FaceTime customers and walk around her store and be like, oh, what are you looking for? And really help fine tune that experience, and be like a more personal shopper or private shopper experience, which I think has been very beneficial for
It's
her.
a very good idea.
But I think that's, and this is what I mean by it's one of those things where you have to innovate. And I think that the businesses that do innovate, and they innovate quicker, air quotes, there's not, you have to do it today. No, of course not. But, the ones that learn to develop those strategies moving forward, especially as we hopefully will be going out of COVID sooner rather than later, and keep those on, I think will end up developing stronger businesses overall. And then we'll be able to reap the benefits of having a stronger business, and also not be as financially worried in the respect to, if something like this happened again, if it was a recession, or if, something like Novichok happened, for example, in Salisbury, where you're not as reliant on the only thing I make money is because people come to town.
For sure. Yeah, the ones who are showing strong initiative and showing their willingness to adapt are going to be the ones that come out on top in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving a little bit back to your short film journey and your kind of short film plans, is there like any specific person, actor, this is obviously thinking a little bit more long term, that you would be like, oh, it would be amazing to work with X, it would be amazing to work with Y?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You would think that coming from a traditional sort of sense, on obviously a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers who go down the traditional filmmaking road of what, like we mentioned earlier, what we can see on Netflix or in the cinema, etc. They've loved film for years, since they were like 15, 14, and they know all the directors' names. They have a favorite director who they just binge watch all their stuff, or they have a favorite actor. They know all the actors' names from every single film they've watched. And I've never really been like that. I've only just started getting into the business of, learning more about directors and actors and the personalities and who's big in the industry and things like that. But I've never been bothered about actually wanting to know every single director and every single film. If I'm interested after I watch the film, then I'll look it up. But I've never been one to be like, oh, I have to know every single person, every single crew member that worked on every single film that I've watched. So it really, I don't have like someone I would love to work with. Obviously, there's a loads of people that would be, an amazing dream cast, but it depends on what film I'd be making. And obviously, most importantly, actually, what I believe is that if I was making that dream film, it would have to be right now, because most of these actors are probably in their prime time, and by the time I'm old enough to get to a huge feature film, they will have been way past their prime. So what I've actually made a habit of doing now is looking at up and coming actors or people who are just starting to get into the industry, so that by the time, hopefully with all the hard work gone into it, that we can make our big features, we can have a pick of these people that we've been keeping an eye on that have moved up in the industry in a similar fashion to how we have.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought it was something that's really important to be in a perspective of. I mean, it's the same with business, where If you pick up someone who you see a lot of potential in, but they may be starting out in business, and you help them grow their business, then, in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, however long it is, when they are, obviously no one knows, but when obviously or hopefully they're big or bigger in that respect, then they're more likely to hopefully remember the things that you either personally did or you helped them with their business when it comes to, their growth. And I think it would be the same would be true when it comes to actors, and the same would be true when it comes to, DPs, lighting, whatever. Think of a crew member, insert place here, right? In that respect as well. So I think that's really important. Have you found that, because one of the main kind of, I guess, arguments to doing a more traditional way of learning, because I think already, but just in case anyone doesn't, I'm not overly against traditional ways of learning, but personally for me, it hasn't ever really necessarily been the best way. I feel that I can actually learn and I can actually work.
Well, in terms of traditional ways of learning, what specifically are you talking about?
In the respect to you go to college, you go to uni, you go into the industry, you work your way up, right? Personally for me, that's not necessarily, I don't think, the best way for me to learn. Now I'm talking very personally, but my question was, have you found a benefit in going through I'll use the term official channels, to kind of develop connections and develop a network and develop people who are now further ahead in the industry or are in parts of the industry that would be valuable to what you do as well? Because that, for me, is the only thing that I can see, quote unquote, overly being a benefit outside of a personal drive to specifically learn and how to go about that learning process.
No, to be honest, I completely agree on that. I don't think we'll see more and more, especially nowadays, that the traditional learning of get your grades, go to college, go to uni isn't the only way to get into the industry, and in fact it can be, in terms of some people's education, a bit hindering into getting to where they want to go. It really depends on the individual, on how they best learn and what specifically they actually want to go into. So for example, if they wanted to do like really high end corporate videos for big business companies, the only problem is a lot of them, because they don't understand the industry as well, they put that they require a bachelor's degree in filmmaking or something to that respect, because to them, because they don't know much about the industry, it shows them that you're dedicated enough to go to uni and learn what it takes to get a degree and show that you're capable of doing whatever they need you to do. But in terms of even in traditional filmmaking nowadays, you don't really see, it's quite a good mixture. It's 50-50 of people going to going to college, then uni, getting into the industry, and then people just starting off in the industry and working up. I don't think there's an advantage or a disadvantage either way. I think the only disadvantage that I might be able to come up with is if you are going down the traditional path, there is a potential that you could do all those years at uni and then end up starting in the exact same place that someone will be starting before you went to uni. So they will have already had few years in the industry and a wealth of experience, whereas you are just starting, and you all you've done to get into the same place as they have is get a degree, which technically is redundant for that position. But the industry is changing all the time. It might start becoming necessary again. Maybe it doesn't. It's hard to say where it's going to go. But for me, I guess my route was, the best way to put it would probably be semi-traditional, because I did go to college twice just to get some sort of qualification for it. So, learning and getting film class qualifications. But really, it was the connection that we made with our college teachers and the connections that we made through him and the connections with those people that were the biggest benefit out of going to college, besides obviously having a distinction showing that we're capable of doing all these things. Because once we made those connections, you just start making more connections, and then you realize that people you have connected with know each other already as well, and it just becomes this big network of people that are all willing to work with each other, work hard for each other, help each other out with their own projects, and it does really become a case of everyone just building each other up to the best potential as possible.
No, definitely. I think that from what my side anyway is, I think what a lot of what you're talking about is building a community around the filmmaking community, or utilizing a community and having a community. But that's a professional community or a network of like people who are like-minded, and they're interested in pursuing a goal, whether that's I want to do an amazing short film, or I want to do an amazing promotional video, or whatever. Because I'm sure you found as well, there's times where you may think at the start of a project or the start of a film, oh, I can do this with 3 people. Oh, I can do this with 2. Oh, I can do this on my own. Right? But then when it actually comes into reality, oh, actually, we need this person. Oh, actually, actually, it would be good to have this person. Oh, I can't. God. Do you have any kind of stories, I guess, in some ways where you have a base idea and it grows 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 to the point where it's grown to a point where it's bigger than you, and in respect to like the film or the project, or you, I don't know, you may not. It's just something for me I've found that has happened faster than I expected it to.
Right. No, I understand completely what you mean. In terms of letting it grow bigger than me, no, I haven't had that, just because I've always made sure that I'm very conscious of what is within my capability and what's within my control, with the equipment that I have available to me, and how much budget we have on the project. But I guess that, well, I have something that basically showed us how important people's roles are and everything. So when we were filming my first short film, do you know who Moment are, right? The phone lens company. Yeah, for people who don't know, they're an American company who make basically the best phone lenses in the world for enhancing your mobile photography and video. But they run a film festival every year called the Moment International Film Festival, where essentially you enter a 3-minute short 3-minute short film of the categories that they put out there, but it has to be all shot on a phone. You can use any equipment you want besides that, but you have to shoot all of your images on a phone. And this is the film that I made for my debut short film, because I thought the limitations would be a good challenge as well, especially because I've worked with cameras for quite a while and I just want to start learning more about other parts of the industry. So if I didn't have to think about the camera, I could focus on, okay, let's try and figure out a way to get good audio. Let's try and figure out good lighting setups. Let's get some decent talent on screen, and just work on every other part of it except for the camera, because I didn't really have to think on that too hard. But so when I was going through building the cast and crew, everything was going okay. I had a couple of people lined up for a few roles. A good friend of mine took the lead role, and I know he's in acting, so I hadn't really seen any of his work, but I trusted him to do a good job. And another film friend of ours, she went to acting school at one point as well, and she took on the second lead role. But then when it came to all the other actors, I realized I had about 4 other actors to fill in. And when it came to it, I had a lot of people falling through at the end who said they could do it, or maybe he'd do it, but I had to keep chasing them up. And eventually a lot of them weren't able to do it. So the people I had that were initially going to be my crew and helping me set up and do the audio and everything had to be in the film. So suddenly I was just working on my own with just the part-timer from Face TV, who's a good friend of mine, Charlie, as the audio guy who's never done audio before in his life. So yeah, that really just showed me how how important people's roles are, and how important it is to make sure that you have backup plans and contingencies as well in case things like that
Mm.
happen and all your plans fall through.
No, that's, I mean, that's an interesting story to hear. I think it's kind of shows that no matter how well planned a project is, that there's a lot of, especially in film, there's a lot of kind of think on your feet, find a solution to this problem situation, right? So you know, a lot of the problems you'll have in film are ones that you just described in the respect to, you know, the crew's now the acting team, right? And now you don't have a crew. How exciting! You know, that's kind of a problem. Okay, I have this problem, and I need to weigh up the solution, right? So I need to find a solution. So it's either we reschedule the shoot completely and I line up more actors, or we just go ahead and try and do it and we use crew as actors. But that means, you know, what are then they doing that then they can't because they're on screen, right? So is there any specific things, any specific decisions, any specific, you know, things that led up to you being able to think like that and think on the fly like that to be able to fix that problem that kind of allows you to develop that mindset?
Yeah, it's, well, to and I think any problem solving, well, in my opinion, problem solving in filmmaking is simultaneously some of the most fun and stressful problem solving you will ever face. Um, it it really comes down to uh, timing and what you have available to you. So, in terms of what happened with my film, the reason I wanted to just do it without um, proper actors, with uh, the three actors that I have in the film, is because at the time of that we were going to film, this was like we had the actors fall through a couple of weeks before shooting, um, and this was in December. And I know, well, from previous experiences, it looked like the Moment International Film Festival uh, came out every January. So I knew we only really had this month and next month to do something. So I was like, okay, we do this now. Let's go ahead, and I will do as much as I can to rescue it in post production because I'm going to need that time in January. When lo and behold, obviously, I didn't realize all this was going to happen, and now the film festival has actually been extended, and it's only just ending actually at the time of filming this next week now. So yeah, so but I think developing that type of problem solving and thinking is really beneficial to, especially if you're looking like what for me into a director's role, because you're gonna have huge time restraints, and you're gonna have massive studio budgets that you cannot waste, and you're gonna have people, you're gonna have to work around people's times and people's availability, and it's going to be a lot more stressful to just little short films, and you're going to be on your feet all the time making changes. Like, you can make a plan as much as you want, especially in this industry, a lot of the time half of that plan is just going to fall through and you're going to have to completely change it. So I do think it's beneficial to be a problem solver in the industry.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I think that's, you know, I think that with anything, I think that being able to tackle a problem not as a problem, as a, you know, a thing you can navigate through to then still have the outcome near to what you were having before the problem is very important. I also think that a lot of people are going to take this time, or the time we've just had during lockdown, to really think about what they wanted to do. You know, specifically, you know, we talked about earlier about you in retail, and realizing that you didn't want to be there. You know, what advice would you give to people who are looking to go out on their own, whether it's a business or they're looking to, oh, I love creating films, but I want to try and make it, you know, in the respect to I want to make it something, right? Whatever that ends up being. But what kind of advice would you give to people who are looking to go out on their own?
I think the biggest bit of advice I could probably give to someone is probably to it's all well and good, having things that you love to do and you find fun, and yeah, you could want to do it as a job. But I think the main thing you need to really ask yourself is, do you have the potential to be good at this job? Does this idea have any potential to actually carry you forward into the future? Because if not, then that's great. You can keep doing it. There's no pressure to turn it into something. But if you really love to do it and you really do think it has the potential to be something else, then you really do have to go for it. And there will be a lot of hard work, but you'll end up realizing that this is the only hard work that you'll actually love doing because it's what you really want to do.
No, absolutely. I think that it's kind of this balance, and I think it's important to make the peace with yourself to know, is this actually something I want to do every single day?
Yeah.
Right? Is it going to be something I will want to do in 10 years? Is it going to be something I want to do still and be as passionate or more passionate about in 5 years, in 10, in 15, in 20, you know? And I think that if your answer is yes, then you'll put in the work, you'll put in the time, you'll put in the effort, and you'll be able to navigate the problems that you're going to have time after time after time after time to be able to navigate those things and be able to still move forward. And this is, and COVID is just one of those barriers or one of those problems in the way that you need to, you personally need to decide how are you going to navigate around it or whatever, in that respect. So I think that's very important to firstly understand. And secondly, if you don't understand that now, that's fine, but you need to start really thinking about how you're going to develop that mindset to allow you to be able to tackle those problems moving forward.
For sure.
Well.
Yeah, if there's something if you don't know whether you want to do it or not, or whether you don't know you can do it for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I think the best thing to do is to go out there and get some experience in it. Actually go out and do it in any way that you can, where there is, like, for example, in our filmmaking, go out and find someone that needs help shooting a wedding, or someone that needs help just making a little film here and there, and just see if you actually enjoy what you like doing. So, like, for example, every time I've been on set, whether it be for one of my short films, or whether it was with Face when we're directing one of our TV commercials, or whether it's on set for someone else's big budget film, it's every set experience I've had has always filled me with this positivity and motivation and excitement of, like, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna make sure I find a way to make that happen.
No, absolutely. I think if you go into something with the right core understanding and the right core want to do it, then no matter what happens, you'll do it anyway, because you'll find a way through. It might not be what for example, if I had said a year ago, I'm going to be here, no, probably not. I have no idea where I'm going to be in a year. But I know it will be further ahead than where I am now, right? That's all I know, in that respect. So I think that's really important. And I think that the more people or creatives do the creative process, the more you understand that and the more you're okay with that. Personally, from what I found anyway, doing it through the years of doing it, in that respect as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that was mostly everything I wanted to cover today. So is there anything that specifically you wanted to go over, talk about, mention?
No, I think you've pretty much covered everything.
Okay, cool. Just for those who may be interested in seeing your short film, perhaps, or seeing your possible new short films, and etc. Where can people find you?
Right. Everything that we're doing short film wise will be still under MTM, so it'll be MTM Films. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook. I don't believe we have a Twitter or Instagram. We just have individuals. So for my personal Instagram and Twitter, where I'll share everything, and YouTube as well, it'll be under capital N Rogue Mountain, and then if you want to also follow Megan's, the other side of MTM, hers is TV Show Insomnia on Instagram and Twitter.
So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on and taking this time to come on the show and just have a chat. In general, it was interesting hearing it from your side, because I haven't had many kind of, I'm going to use the term traditional filmmakers. You know, I've had a lot of like YouTube personalities. I've had a lot of business people. I've had a lot of like people who are closer to my field, which is like just content creation that sort of smash it into business and make it work.
No, yeah, I feel like I'm a mixture of all things, with the end goal of being slightly more
exactly.
traditional.
And that's why I think there could have been and is, I think, a lot of value in that. You know, in the respect to what we talked about previously, and also just your journey, I think is very interesting to hear from a longer term perspective, especially people who I know, because there's a couple of people who I know who are listening to the podcast now, who I'm sure will continue to be listening to the podcast in the future, who are interested in more of a traditional, I want to make a narrative, I want to make, you know, a short, I want to make a feature film, I want to go and work in Hollywood, and etc. Right? So I think that could be very useful. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to listen to mine and Nathan's conversation. I hope you took some value from it and found it interesting hearing a little bit more from the more narrative or short film-esque side of filmmaking that you won't see as much of from me in that respect as well. So thank you so much for watching once again, and if you did enjoy this podcast episode and would like to see more, then make sure to be subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you next week with a brand new guest. It's going to be very, very exciting, and someone who I've been looking forward to having a conversation with for a while, and I'll be happy to. And we'll be sharing that interview with you next week. So thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. And have a wonderful couple of days. I'll see you on Wednesday for a brand new video. But yes, enjoy the rest of your week. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.